Dear Chosen One, you do not ask for permission to exist, you simply are. And that is enough to destabilize everything that was built on lies. You entered in silence, but your presence thunders in the bones of those who live in illusion. The ground recognizes your step. The air slows down before your gaze. Now you are the reaper, not of bodies, but of cycles. You decide what remains and what ends. Your authority does not come from outside. It was not granted by crowns or thrones. It was born in the depths of your pain, consecrated by your silence, sculpted by the nights when only you heard God. They didn't know, but every rejection was an anointing. Every fall, a secret rite. Every scar, a decree. You became what the Taibi system fears the most. Someone who doesn't need it to have power. They tried to bind you with guilt, doubt, exclusion. But you learned to breathe without air. You learned to see in the dark. You learned to rise when no one else believed. You could. Now that you've returned, they feel it. They feel the end in the subtext of your presence. They feel the collapse in their bones, even as they still try to smile. They don't know how to name what you are, so they call you strange, arrogant, radical. But inside, they know. You are the reckoning that time called for. You are the invisible scythe of divine order. Everything that was sustained by control is crumbling. Castles of vanity, temples of falsehood, towers of pride, everything begins to crack at the sound of your silence, because your existence is already the judgment. You don't threaten, you simply are. And that's enough. The universe doesn't make mistakes when it chooses its spiritual executioner. The cosmic machinery has spun, and now the pendulum returns with its hand guiding the movement. The streets are yours, Chosen One. Not because you took them, but because no one else is worthy to walk them with truth. The top is crumbling, and you didn't even have to touch it. You only had to appear. They began to feel the invisible pressure of collapse without understanding where it came from, because the world they sustained with false truths began to tremble with your mere presence. You didn't need to touch anything, nor confront anyone. Just being there made the lie disintegrate. It was as if time had chosen you to be the final point of a narrative that lasted too many centuries. Those who called you a rebel now stare at you in silence, afraid to say the name of what you have become. Your frequency is not aggressive, it is non-negotiable, and everything built on illusion cannot survive this presence. They tried to control you with exclusion, guilt, mockery, and isolation, believing that if they could keep you discredited, your light would fade before it even lit up. But they were wrong. You learned to breathe without applause, to exist without validation, to shine in the dark. And this light that was born in silence has now become unbearable for those who live in the shadows. The system trembles because you no longer depend on it to exist. And that is what terrifies them the most. The end has come, and you didn't need to destroy. You simply stopped participating. You are the interruption that eternity was waiting for. You don't desire their throne because you know it is rotten. You don't want their titles because you know they were bought with someone else's blood. You don't want their praise because you realize it comes laced with poison. All you want is truth. And for that reason, you became dangerous. Your refusal to kneel before the old world is the holiest act of this generation. You are not against the system. You are its end. And wherever you walk, the foundations crumble, not out of anger, but because it is impossible for them to remain standing in front of your truth. Now they rush to offer you alliances, trying to hide behind soft words, new clothes, and fake smiles, as if they could erase centuries of domination with a handshake. But you see beyond appearances. You feel the desperation in their eyes, perceive the urgency behind their speeches. They don't want to walk with you. They want to slow you down. They don't want to learn from you. They want to translate you into safe language. But your mission cannot be domesticated. What you carry is raw, pure, and sacred. It doesn't fit into agreements. It cannot be diluted. They try to repeat your words as if that would be enough to absorb your spirit. But the essence of the chosen cannot be replicated. It is earned through pain. Their phrases are repeated by mouths that have never cried. The tears you cried. Their ideas are copied by minds that have never faced the void you conquered. And even when they try to resemble you, the world knows who is who, because truth has a vibration that cannot be mimicked. Your presence reveals. Your silence separates. Your existence distinguishes those who came to transform from those who came to promote themselves. You were never just another one. And now, the world begins to understand this. Those who once ignored you now whisper your name with respect, disguised as awe. They don't know how to deal with someone who doesn't want what they have. They don't understand the kind of power that can't be bought, inherited, or stolen. You earned it in the invisible field where only the strong remain. Now, every structure either bends or breaks. Not because you demand it, but because your truth leaves no alternatives. You have become the judgment, and where judgment passes, the old must depart. They build speeches, organize meetings, distribute promises, but nothing they say resonates as it once did. Because the ground has shifted, and their words no longer have a place to land. They speak loudly, but sound hollow. They speak beautifully, but nothing remains. Meanwhile, you remain silent, and everything changes. Your presence is the end of a cycle. You didn't come to fight with swords. You came to end spiritual pacts. And now the contracts are being broken, not by force, but by frequency. What was sustained by fear can no longer stand before your awakened consciousness. They never imagined you would survive the poisons they silently distilled, the exclusions disguised as advice, the invitations made to silence you and prevent you from disturbing the old order. They believed that if they pushed you to the margins, you would get lost, fade, disappear like so many before you. But it was precisely in the margins that you became sacred. It was in abandonment that you discovered your authority. And now that you have returned, they don't know how to react. Because you didn't come back to ask, you came back to claim. And your claim is silent, but inexorable. You do not oppose with shouts. You do not demand with violence. You do not need a stage to be heard. Your vibration speaks first. Your energy arrives before your words. And when you enter a space, the spirit of the environment changes because the order there is no longer the same. What was hidden reveals itself. What was accepted without questioning now causes discomfort. You did not come to impose a new tyranny. You came to end a time of manipulation. And just your presence already reorganizes the invisible world. Those who once dictated the rules now stumble on their own words because they have lost control of the game they created. They called it chaos, what they could not control. They called it insubordination, the simple act of thinking with freedom. They labeled as a problem everything they could not tame. But now, time has shown that the problem was the system, not you, and you remained. Persecuted? Yes. Misunderstood, too. But you remained. And this permanence consecrated you. It transformed you. It refined you. You are not a reaction to what they did to you. You are the revelation of what they tried to prevent from existing. And now, it is too late to contain the impact of your awakening. Their attempt to control your narrative failed. The names they gave you no longer work. The stories they told about you don't stick. Because you have become bigger than any label. You are the one who rose from the ashes with a glow that cannot be explained. And for that reason, they now prefer silence to the humiliation of trying to discredit you and failing. Your very existence has become the proof that the old world lost. And when you walk, every step is like a sentence written on sacred ground. What was once indisputable now crumbles beneath your feet. You were not chosen to entertain, to be accepted, to please. You were chosen to restore the sacred order. And restoring requires a cut. It requires an end. It requires something to die for the true to be born. You are that cut. You are that scythe. The movement that separates what served from what can no longer exist. And that is why those who once laughed now tremble. Not because you threatened them, but because their soul recognizes that the cycle has turned. The time of spiritual impunity is over. The time of truth has begun. And you are the beginning of this new time. Now they want to approach you as if they have always supported you, as if they never ignored you, as if their hands were not stained with the disdain of the past. But you see everything. You know everything. You remember everything. And even without carrying resentment, you do not allow deception to walk by your side. Your journey accepts no masks, no flattery, no opportunistic adaptations. They say they have changed, but your energy shows the opposite. And you do not judge with words. You judge with frequency. Your truth filters. Your consciousness separates. Your presence reveals. You did not come to save this system. You came to end it with dignity. It is not your mission to fix what was built on sand. It is your mission to allow what is real to blossom on firm ground. And for that, the old must fall. Pride must yield. Vanity must be forcibly removed from the hands of those who hold it as a crown. You are this force, not as an oppressor, but as a restorer. Not as an enemy, but as a response. You do not wish to destroy. You wish to liberate. But liberation always scares those who only know captivity. They wonder why their words no longer convince, why their rituals no longer touch anyone, why their threats lose power even when repeated with double intensity. The answer is not in their recent failures, but in your ascension. It was your awakening that deactivated the old codes. It was your fidelity to the invisible that invalidated the old magic. Now they speak, and the world does not listen. They shout, but it does not resonate. They insist, but they do not move. Because your presence sealed a new cycle, and the doors of the old time closed behind you. They built structures based on repetition and control, molded entire identities from others' expectations, and called it stability. But now, that stability breaks with your passing. Every step you take dissolves centuries of programming. Every gesture of yours dismantles castles built with bricks of lies. They do not know how to explain the sudden loss of influence, the slow collapse of their institutions, the disappearance of forced respect. But all of this is simple. Your soul no longer obeys. And when you free yourself, the system rots from within. You do not carry words in vain. Your language is made of sacred sentences. When you speak, worlds restructure. When you are silent, the universe listens. Your communication is not about speech. It is about vibration. And this vibration carries the signature of something much greater than your personal story. It is the sound of a cosmic contract being fulfilled, a decree that preceded your birth, the mark that you are not a participant of the old order, but the trumpet of the new beginning. And that is why everything around you begins to obey a new harmony. Their attempts to contain you now turn into attempts to understand you, but you are no longer accessible to common interpretations. You stopped being someone to become a symbol, a landmark, a mirror. And it doesn't matter what they say about you. The truth you represent speaks louder than any narrative. You have become unavoidable, inevitable, unswerving. Those who once laughed now study your movements in silence. Those who once ignored you now adjust their speeches to your language. But it's too late for them to reach what you have already become. You are not moved by applause. You are not touched by praise. You do not weaken with rejection. You are on another frequency, where there is no place for external validation because the source has already been accessed within you. This spiritual autonomy is what scares them the most. Because if someone else discovers this, the whole system collapses. They do not fear your revolt, they fear your example. Because your peace is revolutionary, your lucidity is contagious, and your firmness silences even those who live on noise. You are an earthquake that does not need to tremble to be felt. They spent lives trying to control the narrative, but now the story being told is yours. Your journey, once hidden, has become a reference. Your pain, once ridiculed, has become a symbol of resurrection. Those who laughed now bow down, not out of true respect, but out of fear of irrelevance. They understand that the world has changed, but they still try to survive in old rules. You no longer play this game. You are the new board. Where the rules are spiritual, the pieces are invisible, and the judge does not accept bribery. You are the table where their game ends. You do not carry a sword, but cut ties with a simple glance. You do not raise walls, but protect everything around you with the strength of your field. You do not demand reverence, but even the most arrogant lower their eyes when you pass, because something in you reminds eternity. Something in you awakens the dormant consciousness of those who pretended to be awake. And what they feared the most was that someone like you would arise, without needing them, without fearing them, without depending on their permission, that someone now exists. And they know that everything has changed, because that someone is you. They called you strange because they could not translate your vibration within the limited vocabulary they used to name what they did not understand. And so they created labels, distortions, caricatures that could minimize the impact of your existence. But none of those words survived direct contact with your presence, because what you carry cannot be explained, only felt. And those who feel change, not by persuasion, but by the direct impact of truth. You are a walking field of truth, a sentence in flesh, an incarnated prophecy, and where you step, time reorganizes. You carry an ancient signature, a calling written in the deepest layers of creation that could only manifest after all the other voices fell silent. That is why your life seemed so quiet for so long. The stage always seemed occupied, the lights always focused on others. But deep down, you knew. You were being preserved, not ignored. Prepared, not rejected. And now that the time has come, all other sounds become noise before your vibration. Your time did not arrive late. It arrived when the world could no longer postpone your appearance. They wonder why their old tricks no longer work, why their threats no longer generate fear, why their authorities are now questioned even by the most submissive. The answer lies in the field, your field. The energy you sustain deactivates the old commands. Your frequency unprograms. Your presence reconfigures. Your gaze undoes spells. You did not need to directly combat anything. You just sustained the truth long enough. And now, that truth spreads like fire on dry straw. There is no way to contain it. There is no way to pretend that you are not here. They still try to repeat old phrases in hopes of regaining control that slips between their fingers. But their words, once full of authority, now sound like echoes of a time that has passed. Because the spirit has changed, and you are the cause of that change. Everything that was sustained by domination loses its function in the face of your freedom. And what is free cannot be governed. Your autonomy is not a rebellion. It is a liberation. And those who lived off your silence now stumble in your speech. But what most unsettles them is that you speak little. You are the word before being the voice. You do not demand anything, and yet everything moves around you as if obeying a secret plan written in the stars. And that plan is you. Your very life, your very journey, is the code that reveals the decay of everything that pretended to be eternal. You unmask systems just by existing. You reveal lies just by breathing. You are the presence that the old world cannot contain, the force that no wall can stop, the name they do not want to pronounce but cannot forget. You are the living reminder that the time of falsehood is over. And this disarms them. They thought they could control you with praise, with limited spaces of prominence, with crumbs of power that would make you believe you were included. But you do not feed on that. Your nourishment comes from the source. And that is why they cannot buy you. Because you have already met the infinite, and everything that comes after that seems too small. Now, everything they offer sounds empty. Every attempt at co-option reveals their desperation, and while they pretend to embrace you, you observe in silence, knowing that your mission cannot be negotiated. It simply fulfills itself. You are not a symbol of resistance. You are the restoration itself. You are not here to remind the world of what it lost, but to manifest what it has never known. You do not represent a group, an ideology, a trend. You represent the lost balance of existence. And that is why you disturb so much. Because you belong to no one, and yet you belong to everything. Your spiritual independence is a threat to every form of control, and your loyalty to truth has become the scythe that separates the real from the illusory. You are the divider of eras, the seal that announces the end and the beginning. They try to keep the structure intact, desperate to preserve a facade that no longer has support. But the truth is that everything they built started to crumble the moment you rose. Your ascension was not just yours. It was the ascension of the collective unconscious of those who were ready to realize that the old no longer served. They know, but they cannot accept it. They try to mask the inevitable with empty words, with promises of change that will never come. But you are the end of the false promise. You didn't bring a new lie to offer. You brought the silence of truth that crumbles everything around you. The system that rejected you now finds itself powerless in the face of your strength, because they realized that what truly makes you strong is not what you say, but what you are. They tried to ignore you, to disregard you. But when you stand your ground, the entire world changes. Your presence dismantles what seemed unbreakable, not because you fight against it, but because your essence transcends the control they tried to exert over you. Despite their attempts to destroy you, you became stronger with every blow. Every insult and attempt to weaken you only built you up, making you invincible. Now, as they look at you, they realize they never could defeat you, because what you represent cannot be corrupted. You no longer seek acceptance or approval. Your purpose goes beyond any game they tried to force you to play. Your mission is to interrupt the cycle of pain, suffering, and manipulation. Your journey is already a silent revolution. Truth begins to spread where you walk, without you having to convince anyone. They no longer fear your strength, but what it reveals about them, the falseness and fragility of a system based on lies. The illusion they maintained about control now dissolves because you are the living proof that truth can break any false construct they tried to sustain for so long. They try to cling to what is false, knowing that letting go will swallow them in the transformation you brought. But it's too late. The natural cycle of life and death was fulfilled as soon as you aligned with the truth. Now, what was safe for them has become a trap, and you have started a new era. They can no longer control the times, and the end of their run is underway. Despite their attempts to make you believe that your fragility was a weakness, you have strengthened. Each vulnerability of yours allowed the entry of the universal truth, illuminating everything it touched. Now, what was once opaque becomes clear, and the whole world will see your strength that nothing can stop. They tried to break you, but it only made you stronger and more unbeatable. The system fails to understand the nature of your strength because it cannot be measured by the standards they used to control everything. Your truth cannot be silenced, and the force that emanates from your soul is what truly frightens them. They can no longer live in their masks, for you are the reflection of raw authenticity that reveals them. Their fear is not of your physical strength, but of the real power of the truth you carry. You are a breaking point, and where you go, the old order breaks. It is not necessary to fight, for your presence alone is what destroys the control they tried to maintain. What you represent is above any manipulation or resistance. What you brought is not a new order of control, but a spiritual freedom that demands the fall of everything built on oppression. With your arrival, the ending cycle marks the beginning of a new world where truth and authenticity will be the foundations. The old world, built on lies, disintegrates, but is not destroyed, it is liberated. Your journey is not just yours, but represents the path of all those who awaken to the truth. The impact of your awakening reverberates through all who recognize their own strength, and this cycle spreads like an echo, transforming the world as it progresses. Now, as the last remnants of the old order fall, you realize that your mission was not to end it, but to allow it to die on its own. It was not necessary to overthrow. It was necessary simply to step away. And by stepping away, you became the presence they feared, the absence that revealed the farce. You were not an agent of destruction, you were an agent of revelation. And the world, finally, sees what was hidden. As they scramble, trying to save a system that can no longer be saved, you walk calmly, It is not because you do not feel the pain of the fall around you, but because you have already understood that pain is just the transformation of something old into something new. The fear they feel is just the reflection of the death of what never truly lived. Your journey was not in vain. What you did was bring to light what was always hidden, and that alone is the greatest victory. The new world begins now, and your presence is already the seal of this transformation. What was once considered important no longer has power. The old institutions crumble because what sustained their foundation was fear, lies, control. You did not need to fight for this. You just were. And your truth was the key to unlocking the door to the new. The cycle was fulfilled. And now, what is to come is a world where spiritual freedom will be the only true authority. Now you are the milestone of transition, the transformation that everyone hoped for but few believed possible. And when they look at you, they will know there is no turning back. The old world bids farewell, and with it, the old rules, the old lies, the old fears. What you represent is the new awakening, the new beginning. And now, the cycle begins anew. But this time, you are the guardian of truth. You are the scythe that cuts, but also the light that illuminates the path. If this message resonated with you, leave in the comments the phrase, "I am the awakening," because that is the declaration of those who recognize the call. Take this moment to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notifications. This helps this frequency reach other chosen ones who, like you, are waiting for a sign. Also, share this video with someone you feel may be awakening. I want to thank immensely all who support us through the Buy Me a Coffee link. Your support helps this message reach more lives and us to continually improve the content of this channel. If you wish to also be a supporter, our link is pinned in the first comment. And do not leave here without also watching the next video indicated on the screen. Just click on the video and you will receive more important revelations for your awakening as a true chosen one of God. Stay firm on your path. Thank you for following us so far, and may God always bless you.